All right, today we are diving into something pretty unique. It's a proprietary system called Market DNA, and we're going to walk through how it works with a real case study. We'll be looking at WTI crude oil. So let's jump right in. So, what is Market DNA? Well, it's a completely unique geometric system. It gives you a totally different way of looking at the market. The whole point of this explainer is to create a public record of how it's applied. This way, its methods can be verified transparently by anyone. Now, it's really important to understand what market DNA is not. This system operates completely outside of traditional market analysis. That means no technical analysis, no fundamental analysis. Forget about quantitative indicators, Fibonacci ratios, or Elliott waves. And you can throw chart patterns and trend lines out the window too. It's just a totally different animal. So here's what we've got on tap for this explainer. First, we'll touch on the market DNA method itself. Then we'll get into our WTI crude oil case study, starting with the Phase 1 entry plan. After that, we'll look at profit projections and the path to completion, and we'll wrap things up with some really important disclaimers. Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty. The market DNA method is all about using a series of predefined geometric shapes. These shapes are used to map out a potential market cycle, and this cycle is neatly broken down into 4 distinct phases. Each phase has its own specific triggers and outcomes. So let's see how this all applies to our case study for today, WTI crude oil. And here we go. This is our case study in real time. You're looking at the WTI crude oil chart from December 15th, 2025. As you can see, we are officially in Phase 1 of the cycle. The whole thing kicked off right at that point labeled M. That's our starting line for this entire process. Okay, so we're at the starting line. What's the game plan? This next part breaks down the complete strategy for entry and risk management. And what's so crucial here is that all of this is defined right at the start of the cycle. No guesswork. The primary entry level, which is that M point we just saw, is set at $56.56. Now, this price has already been hit, and that's the event that officially kicked off Phase 1 for this cycle. But wait, there's more. Besides that primary entry, there's also a secondary optional entry level. It's sitting at $54.128, labeled P of C. Think of this as a key piece of the risk management plan. It's another predefined opportunity to enter the market if certain conditions are met. This table gives us a fantastic look at the risk structure for this whole setup. We're starting with a hypothetical capital of $100,000 and a max allowed drawdown of 5%. From there, the model uses parameters you see here, like the mean entry, the trapezoid time duration, and the third triangle domain, to calculate a total position size of 0.83. And this is then split into 2 separate trades of 0.42 each. Now, this next part is a mandatory disclosure, and it perfectly explains how those numbers are reached. Both trade sizes are calculated using the hypothetical capital, the investor's maximum allowed drawdown, the third triangle domain percentage, the risk coefficient, and the contract size. You can see that transparency is a huge part of the market DNA method. All right, so we've got the entry plan and the risk dialed in. Now we can look at the potential outcomes. And remember, these are all based on predefined targets inside that geometric structure. So the model gives us 3 distinct price targets for this cycle. Target 1 is at the mirror, or the lower trapezoid, right at $57. Target 2 is at a point called Apex N, which is $59.64. And the final target, which represents a full exit, is at the top of the trapezoid at $61.85. Each of these targets represents a key level within that geometric map. Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting. This table lays out the projected returns for 2 different scenarios. Let's look at scenario 1. If only that first entry M is triggered, we're looking at a potential profit of over $2,200. That translates to a really solid 33.76% annualized return. But now look at scenario 2. If both entries are activated, that potential profit more than doubles to over $4,500. And that's a pretty staggering 69.05% annualized return. So now that we know the potential outcomes, let's map out the actual journey. We're going to walk through what triggers the next phases. We'll just follow the normal path from Phase 1 all the way to 4. So Phase 2 is called mirror contact, and this phase is triggered by a very specific observable event. It happens if the price makes contact with what's called the mirror delay line, or if it touches the lower boundary of the trapezoid. Next on the path is Phase 3, known as the end-level event. Just like before, this phase gets triggered when the price hits a specific geometric point. In this case, it's the point labeled apex N of triangle 3. And that brings us to the finish line, phase 4. This is what marks the completion of the entire cycle. It's triggered simply when the price reaches the top boundary of that trapezoid structure. Once that happens, this specific cycle is officially documented as complete. Okay, before we wrap this up, it is absolutely essential that we go through the following disclaimers. These are the rules of the road for all the information you've just seen. So please, listen closely. First and most importantly, this is not financial advice. Second, any leverage above a factor of 10 is strictly prohibited. Third, do not invest essential personal funds. Fourth, these analyses are purely for documentation and public verification. And finally, any risk management must follow the provided instructions exactly. So, to wrap it all up, the main takeaway here is that this whole process serves as a transparent record. It's a documentation of the market DNA model in action. We've seen how this unique geometric system provides a completely structured approach, from predefined entry points to risk management and profit targets. The only question now is, what will the next observable event be? We'll definitely be watching to find out.